Welcome back, you guys. I'm Tassie with Shaman Memoirs, and this is my podcast series where I like to bring on guests to really just share about their spiritual experiences, whether they are a practicing shaman, one day soon to be one, or a holistic healer of any kind. I always advise if you guys would like to come on, share your story, you can reach out to us at services@shamanmemoirs.com. But for today's guest, we do have Johnny here. Welcome, Johnny. Super excited to have you on.
Yes, thank you, Tassie. Hi, my name is Johnny. I am an up-and-coming shaman, along with my wife, Miss Hannah, who was probably previously on here. And I'm an avid sports follower, and I also play tennis. So if you guys are in the cities, hit me up.
All right, I have to ask you this because Gigi is going to ask you this.
Okay.
Do you play pickleball?
I actually do not. My wife knows I am actually not a big fan of pickleball.
Why? Why is that?
I am not a big fan of pickleball. Hot take. Sorry, guys and gals. Because where I'm from, they have taken down a lot of tennis courts for pickleball. And, because I love tennis, it breaks my heart to see, hey, we have all these tennis courts, and then they break them all down and then build pickleball courts, and now tennis players have to go find tennis courts. Yeah, other places.
We were just playing pickleball because she's been trying to get me to go forever. I'm a racquetball fan, so I like to go play racquetball instead of pickleball. And I made her a promise, if you come and play racquetball once, I will go out and play pickleball with you because I've been trying to avoid it.
Right.
So finally, we went to go play pickleball, but it was at a tennis court, and they just drew the lines where it's at. But the tennis stuff is still there, though.
Right. Like it's not bad, but when we're trying to practice for a match or something, right?
Oh yeah, and it's nothing but pickleball.
Yeah, it's nothing but pickleball lines. It's distracting because I used to actually play at a tennis court out there in Champlain. But because they have pickleball lines, we can't tell if our serves are in or not. So we get confused because the tennis lines are white, but then pickleball lines are yellow. So all of a sudden, if for instance, if I'm serving or whoever I'm playing against is serving, I can't tell if it's in. So I'll just I guess I'll just play it. I'll just play the point. So it's kind of confusing for us on that perspective. So that's why I'm not a big pickleball fan. But I told the wife, when I get old and my knees don't work anymore, I'll play pickleball. I'll give it a chance. But for now, since I'm still young,
go with racquetball.
Yeah, I'm gonna still stick with tennis until my knees don't work no more.
Racquetball is pretty close to tennis.
Okay.
It's the small rubber balls, and you just smack against the wall. It's kind of like when you're volleying and you're practicing against the wall. But it's air conditioned and there's restrooms.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Because I play in my gyms. where they have the actual racquetball rooms.
Right.
And then one side is all glass, the back, and then in front of you it's all walls. So you're just volleying, and then you can play with another player, and you go back and forth, but you're hitting it to the wall. But with pickleball, the only thing I don't like about it is you need 4 players, or else you are hustling.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Singles pickleball is tough.
It's fun though. I like running across the court. That's what I like.
I see. Yeah.
But honestly, when I took her to play racquetball, and then I'm seeing her style in playing pickleball, she's actually better equipped for racquetball.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
But I think she just got into pickleball first, so she became an avid pickleball player. But she likes to go to the courts, and honestly, I don't believe in paying that much money to play on that court. Oh my God, it's so expensive every time, unless you go at 9:00 at night. But anyways, my whole rant here is that I'm just waiting for it to come to the 4th of July as a tournament thing. Because pickleball became
pickleball is a big
thing.
sport. I think. Hannah and I, we just went to a. What do you even call it? A sports competition? It's kind of like a J4 before J4.
Oh.
And it was played out there in Cottage Grove, and there were a couple of pickleball courts out there. And they had a pickleball tournament. I was like, wow, there are actually a lot of people picking up on pickleball. Yeah,
and it was funny because GJ was like, "Oh, I'm surprised you're pretty good, Tassie." I was like, I'm just big now, but when I grew up being athletic. Right. I grew up being athletic, so even though I've gained weight because I'm old now, almost 40 years old, I can still play.
I can still play.
I was surprised when we were playing yesterday. I was like, "Oh, okay, you guys know how to hit it." Because it's funny because other people have asked me, and they're like, "Oh, have you ever played a racket sport before?" I'm like, "No, but." it's not that I don't think it's hard to just hit it. But
in high school, I played badminton. So I grew up. Playing badminton. Our family would play badminton.
Right.
So you're used to volley, and then we did tennis too. We were not very good at tennis, I'll tell you that. But we would play tennis too, and so. But then I grew up playing hockey and volleyball and basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like I was used to being in sports, But then so. Pickleball's okay. It's okay. So long tangent.
Yeah, long tangent here. Sorry.
We were playing pickleball, and I was getting so irritated because I'm like, we were playing with one player who was not athletic, and nobody wanted that person as their partner, right? So what? We're the older siblings. We'll take the L. We'll make it up for them, right?
Right.
But GJ kept wanting we need to serve correctly. But but the rest of us, we just wanted to volley because we're just playing for fun. But she was like, no, y'all need to serve and play correctly so that when you go and play with other people, you know the rules. And I'm like, we know the rules, but right now it's just us. We just want to volley so finally I got mad because we started to do her thing, volleying correctly, moving in and out of our boxes. But then I'm like, do you see this? It's because of this player here who don't know how to play. As soon as you volley, she gonna miss it anyway. Then we gotta set it all up again. I was like, let's just volley. And so then finally at the very end, we finally just started volleying, even if it's out of lines. Hit it back anyways. Right. And then this person was just so bad. No names, because Beluka moi. She'll know exactly who we're talking about. But I guess in her defense, she was very exhausted at that time because we had been playing for a few hours.
Ooh, yep.
Oh, God. Why don't you just hook it up to there?
It's okay. I'll just hold it like this. Go.
Okay. Anyway. All right, back to the main topic.
Yes, back on topic.
You're the one who brought up the tennis thing. So, Johnny, I picking up from Hannah's previous episode, and if you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. But, she mentioned something very interesting that you guys met on Hmong Tinder, and, she really gave you that ultimatum about shamanism. What was it like from your side? Like what was it like getting that ultimatum and not sure if you were going to commit? Like, what was it like?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when she told me, it caught me really off guard because I think at that point, we may have been dating for like maybe a couple weeks or a couple months at that point. And it wasn't until we were talking about like religion, right? And then that's when she was like, oh, like, I'm just letting you know I'm gonna be an up and coming shaman. And I was like, what? I was like, what? What did you say? And she was like, yeah, I'm gonna be an up and coming shaman. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know how to feel about that. And it's not as if like I have like any negative feelings towards like shamanism, but
what were you thinking? How would it go with your life, with your family? Right. Like, what were you thinking? Like, was that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking like, okay, so my family, we grew up very Christian, but I wouldn't say that we were, going to Sunday school, like, or even going to church, like, on Wednesdays, but, we would go every week or every other week, and my parents would make us go to Sunday school with the kids and stuff, but, I was thinking, like, man, how is this gonna be with my family, because my parents are more, more modernized. Oh, do things like the Christian way, if you go to church, like, these people come and help you, but then because in my perspective, I'm very used to like the older generation of shamanism, where this like, oh, we're going to do things this way and only this way too. So I was like, oh man, how is that going to meld with my family?
Yeah.
And meld with me personally, because I'm a very open-minded person. So I'm kind of like you, Tassie, where I'm very logical. So I want to know the reason why people think a certain way or they feel a certain way, so, and I want to know that reason. And just understand it, mainly just to understand where people are coming from, and then of course when she told me, I was like, man, why did she become that way?
Yeah.
What was her journey? So that was mainly.
I love that you wanted to. It wasn't a no for you right away.
Yes, it was not.
You had reservations, but you really wanted to. You cared enough to know what was her journey like to lead her to this point? Because this is not an easy journey for anybody to accept, that this is the path you're going to go through. Wow. So then that's kind of what brought you to go to her friend as well and to kind of see into this world. And then was it during that time that you discovered that you were going to be a shaman as well, or supposed to be?
Yes. By the time that we went to go see her friend, I was always kind of skeptical because I'm kind of a skeptical person. So I'm always kind of like, I'm going to leave my foot here, but I don't mind, putting one step through the door to kind of see what it's like on their side. And so when we went to go see her, because I had previously asked Hannah, like, okay, well, like, do I have any, like, spirit guides or anything? And she was like, well, I'm not going to tell you. And I was like, okay, it's whatever. So I always kind of kept that in the back of my mind, but we went to go see her friend and she confirmed it. I looked over at my wife and I was like, I knew it. I knew it. Like, a part of me was like, I knew it. Like, I knew this is going to be a part of my journey too. As soon as like her friend confirmed it, I was like, well, this is it.
Can I ask you, how did you know?
I don't know. I guess in a way it's like a gut feeling, because it's always like, whenever I talk to my wife about like anything, like it'll always kind of be like a little thought bubble that goes to the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put that in the back burners for now. But
so, like, can you give me an example?
Like, for instance, like if we talk about anything about like finances or something, and she's like, oh well, let's do this and this. I'm like, okay, well let me think about it, and I'm gonna get back to you.
Yeah, you need to kind of absorb the knowledge for a bit, sit on it, and going back to that gut feeling, I would definitely say that nobody could ever convince you that you have spirit guides.
Yes.
You would be like, I feel nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. It's kind of like that for me. Like, especially since I'm still in the beginning of my journey. Like, I now know that I have spirit guides. Excuse me, but I still don't feel them. But I know that I have a spirit. Because I talk with my wife like a lot, and for my spirit, like right now, I could tell that he is still young, and in my opinion, he still feels like he's a teenager. So I feel him a lot, and he's usually the one that kind of gives me like a gut feeling.
Yes.
So
yeah, and like, and there's so many instances of people who are like, well, I never knew I was a shaman because I didn't have the symptoms like this and that.
Yes, yeah.
Like like what everyone else says, it's very extreme. Everyone will feel things so differently. Like that gut instinct, I always tell people, your gut instinct is the most accurate form of Ning. Like, you can have all the visions in the world, you could hear all the voices in the world, but that gut instinct, it is something that even my Huaneng, they try to get me to rely on a lot. But when I'm really stupid, I don't understand, they show me all the different things until I get it. So, like that's, and it's really interesting that you said that he feels like a teenager, because when I sometimes explain people's spirit guides to them and what they kind of look like, especially like their higher self, their version of them, it's sometimes I'll use that. I'll be like, okay, this doesn't make any sense in the spirit world when I say this, but in our human understanding comprehension, they look like early 20-year-old, So that way you can register what do they kind of look like. But
right.
But they're not in their early 20s in the spirit world, but that's what they look like. Whereas others are much older, and so they have that old soul kind of person.
Yeah. Hannah's told me that too. Like, she said that, she always says like, oh, like, your spirit always looks like, he looks like he's a teenager, but, I guess there was a point in my time where my grandma had passed away, and that time, like, made me really sad. And she was like, oh, you look like, you look like you're 14, but I was like, oh, my grandma passed away when I was 20, Yeah. And she was just like, you were 20? You look like a kid. I was like, I guess I can
You
see
do look
that.
very young still, though.
Yeah.
Even right now, you look very, very young,
I'm almost 30, people.
Yeah. No, you look very young still, yeah. So yeah, like everybody, it's and like when I first rose, people always told me this story, even my teacher, that the shamans who have a very easy time with raising, it's because they've been Wanenging, or they're older, their spirit, and they've Waneng in several lifetimes before. So it's very everything is easy. It appears easier. But when someone's higher self, their spirit is very young still, they struggle a lot more. It's not that someone is better than the other. It is just your experience. You can't compare. It's just not the same.
Interesting.
Yeah. But so then you go and you find out, like, what were you thinking after that? Like, were you concerned? Were you like, what does this do with my faith? Like how did that happen?
Right, because I'm not a religious person, so I'm very open to just believing that whatever people believe in is whatever they believe in, and that's okay, because sometimes it gives them the motivation and a drive to do something, and I'm completely okay with that. But to all of a sudden just know that, oh hey, so like this is gonna be your lifestyle from now on, and if you don't choose it, you're gonna get sick and you might pass. It pushed me into a corner, honestly. And I've talked with Hannah about it, and I'm still kind of in that, kind of
trying to fight or flight.
Yeah, fight or flight, where I'm kind of like, man, like, is this really the lifestyle I want? Because I'm the kind of person where I don't want any boundaries. And I feel like, in my opinion, like, religion always puts up a lot of boundaries for people. Well, if you believe in this, you can't believe in that. Or if you do this, you can only do it that way. And I'm like, well, what if I just want to do it my way?
Yeah.
You know? And when she told me that, I'm still kind of like working through that. Like, I know this is not a religion, right? And it's just a lifestyle, right? Just kind of like how, for me, like, sports is a lifestyle. I follow it, and I have passion for it. But I guess I just have to shift that kind of passion into, shamanism, which is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of adjusting for me, and I'm still trying to work through that too.
And I love how much thought you're actually putting into it, because like, I'll be the first to admit, going into shamanism, I didn't know what it meant for me, because I didn't grow up with shamans. I didn't grow up seeing shamans starting. Yes, I had no idea. I thought this is literally the translation that another spirit comes into you, possesses you, and then you have all the knowledge.
Yes,
that is my interpretation of my young, naive self back then. And it was having to succumb myself, to give myself up, everything that I am, to become a shaman. Like that, because you don't hear about the beginnings of a shaman, and so it's just not talked about. Or I just never knew somebody like that. Very Americanized, though, of course, I admit. So when I finally experienced it, I was like, oh, it's just me. It's just my zany self. Like, so it was, it's your skin but better. Literally what I believe. Because, like, I was like, well, like, how am I going to know the future? How am I going to know someone has a demon on them? Like, other than seeing ghosts, I was like, but how will I know? Like, I don't know nothing. So it was just... I think in my view, it was good that I didn't have former knowledge, so I didn't compare myself to anybody. Because I was like, literally, look, if this is really what I'm meant to do, it will just happen and they will just take control. And so, or else I don't do anything. Like, there were so many times where I would tell my spirit guides, I'm not doing nothing unless you make me do it. And so my spirit guides, though, are very forceful because I am that person. So, but then it's funny because there are people who say that they're very similar to me, but they don't feel anything. And it's more so because they have a different type of spirit guide that is not as strict in that way, but they're trying to lead you to connect the dots, but you still need to reach and connect it for them. And it could be something so simple. Like, you keep looking at the headset or like that piece of paper. You just keep looking at it. You don't know why, but your eyes keep going to it. They're trying to get you to connect it, but you just still don't connect it. It's not as extreme as I thought it was, thankfully. Because I was ready to, like, well, I guess I'd rather live possessed than die early. That was my mentality, you guys. I was like, I don't want to die. So that is what really led me to do mine, not fully understanding how much work is involved, you guys. There's so much work involved. Like, I didn't know how to build a shrine.
Yeah.
I didn't know the tool costs. I didn't know how many animals you'd have to use and who was going to come help me with these animals. I was just like, sign me up because I don't want to die. whatever it is, sign me up.
Yeah, see, I was the opposite of that, where I was kind of like, I don't want to die young. You know what I'm saying? Right? Well, I was like, man, I don't want to die young, because I'm like, well, I'm in my 20s, but I was like, dang. I mean, I did live a long enough life, I guess, but to just all of a sudden just like wither away.
Oh, no.
And right, it's either, well, I do this for the rest of my life, or I die young. And I was like, well, you kind of pushed me into a corner here, so I guess I'll go with the other one. I'll go with the first one. I'll do this and live a long life.
Yeah.
Then die young and wither away. So I was like, well, I guess I'm into a corner, so I guess I'll choose that one. You know?
Yeah. But like, what my spirit guides really teach me, though, is like when I put my shrine down, they still came and taught me things, but just not me practicing at my shrine. So like I had a lot of insomnia, and then I was really big on going to the gym and really about traveling and my health and everything and hanging out with friends. And so for that, they would come to me in different ways now, because they will come to you no matter what and give you the information no matter what. And you will still retain the knowledge, because then when I opened up my shrine again, I felt much stronger than I was back then. And I was like, wow. So these whole 10 years, I was still learning. They were still making me practice and learn in their own method. So, because then I suffered from a lot of insomnia, and they would come in my dreams all the time. So it was like all of the experience was still there. It wasn't like I paused my journey. It still continued. And, so I feel like a lot of times your spirit guides will try to do it in a way that you can absorb it. So I have a lot of people who come to me and they don't want to be the traditional shaman, right? You don't have to be. Like you can, now there's Reiki, there's energy work. There's so many different avenues for people. They just want to do tarots. They just want to see people virtually, but not actually have them come to their house. That is where a lot of people are headed towards. And their spirit guides are allowing them to do this now because this is the new way of life for them. I always get people asking me, how do I see shamanism changing in the future? It's already begun. This is the future for shamanism. I know of some shamans who were raised by a teacher who never physically came to their house. They did it all virtually. They don't even live in the same state as them. And they didn't have to fly. Did they have their own struggles because of that? Yes. Like that, but that is the give and take. That if you don't have the support to do a whole ceremony, then they tend to opt for virtual shaman masters rather than those who come in person to your house, So it is just so different now with so many things that I've learned that I didn't know existed until I opened up Shaman Memoirs. And then that's when I started meeting all sorts of people and all the different ways of Nang and how much it's changed in the 10 years that I was gone. Because after those 10 years, I stopped hanging out with any shamans. I was like, whatever battles y'all are fighting, like I'm no longer there. I'm no longer in that headspace,
Question, with you saying that, so if you are chosen to become a shaman and then you choose not to be the traditional shaman that we see with our OGs and everything, right? And even yourself, I would consider yourself very traditional. And you choose to go different routes like Reiki, tarot, or other means. Does that fulfill your duty?
That's a good question.
It does. It does in its own way. It does in the nutshell. And what ends up happening is, let's say you opt not to use animals. You will just lose that art. You will lose that gift, the ability to use animals. And instead, you will start to become vegetarian because now that you are changing your process, like let's say traditionally you were supposed to be like more like me. Yeah. Like even for me going into Reiki and everything, it's changed me as a shaman, as a person, like where I'm allergic to alcohol now.
Wait. Let's go back. We're
going to go off on that.
Wait. So you said that because you had Reiki done on you, it changed for you?
No. My spirit guide is wanting me to learn Reiki.
Oh, wanting to add an additional skill set to yourself, therefore it's going to change you being allergic to alcohol.
Yes. So it's please don't ever take away beef. Okay. I'll give up the alcohol, okay, but not the beef. I need the beef in my life. I'll take pork too, please.
That's interesting.
Yes. So I am completely alcohol free now. I discovered that not too long ago. I am a proud owner of EpiPen. I went into anaphylactic shock, and it was so interesting. The story was I went to go raise a student, and that morning I thought for the first time in my life I was possessed. And like how I always say in my videos, if I wanted to, I could just stop. In the middle of your Nang session, you could stop, right? You could hear everybody going around you, but that morning I could not. And when I chant, it changed. And everyone there, they were like, that is not Tassie's Ngo. That's not her chant. And they were like, this is really weird. And I was doing it for so long, doing this chant. And the whole time I'm doing this chant, I kept trying to break the chant to change it back to the Ngo that I'm used to. Because I'm like, I don't recognize this spirit that's in me right now. I don't recognize this. This is not my chant. Something is wrong. And then I couldn't break it. I tried like 6 times, you guys, to break this Ngo, and it wouldn't let me. And I could not stop shaking. I even had the Tsianeng with me. And in my mind, I was like, today's the day. I am going to become possessed, And then my Kwaneng come, and they're trying to calm me down. They're trying to calm me down, like, you're not getting possessed. You need to calm down. And I'm like, no, I'm getting possessed, man. This is it. And because I couldn't stop it. Like, I've never had that experience before. And then after I did my whole thing, then boom, they released me, and then I went back to my normal chant. And then later on that day, I was like, oh, I'm super excited. I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to have drinks. So I was pre-drinking, and I had 1.5 shot out of the same bottle I've had since New Year's Eve. And instantly, everything started happening where my hands were super itchy and blotchy. My heart rate was going like crazy. I threw up the alcohol, and then all of a sudden something muffled my ears and I couldn't hear. And then eventually I was like, okay, let's just head towards the ER, right? Like, let's just make our way there. But if I'm okay by then, we don't have to go in. But then I couldn't feel the sides of my tongue. And then I kept feeling something was in my throat, but it's because my throat was closing up. And then so we make it there. And, I apologize in advance to anybody who works in the medical industry. I am terrible. I am a terrible patient. Needles and I are not friends. Because I'm sitting there, I'm thinking they're going to give me some oral medication, like some Benadryl. Yeah, so I'm really bad about the ER. Like, anytime I go to the hospital, I'm pretty bad. And I remember I was sitting there. I thought, oh, they're just going to give me an ointment. They're going to give me like a Benadryl, pop a Benadryl, and I'm okay. So I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the nurse is like rustling all this stuff on her little platter. And I turn and I look at her. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, what do you got there? And she was like, oh, well, she's holding a needle. Oh, we need to put in an IV in you. I was like, what? I was like, you don't need to put an IV in me. Like, I'm okay. And she was like, well, we're going to need to put an IV in you, and it's going to help you a lot more. So then Molly is with me, and she was like, it's okay, Tassie. Just let her put it in. I was like, no. And she was like, I can see from here, your hands are completely swollen. You're going to need an IV. And I was like, man. So I'm like, fine. So I'm getting ready to take off my jacket, and I realized I can't even bend my arms back because I was so like shoot.
You're so swollen.
Yeah, so swollen. Like I couldn't even bend my arms back to take my jacket off. So then Molly had to help me get my jacket off of me, and she's holding this arm down. She's holding it down, and she leans in. She goes, "Whatever happens, do not punch the nurse." And I look at her. I'm like, "What makes you think I'm gonna punch them?" So she misconstrued it because when I go under anesthesia, I tend to attack people. That's my natural reaction. I don't know why. Suddenly, I forget where I'm at and I know something's wrong, and then my body starts to move. So usually they're strapping me down. So I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm not gonna just punch them." So then, so I'm looking away. And she's putting it in, and I'm screaming bloody murder. And this is like just a room right off of the waiting area. And then so she gets the IV in me, and then I'm like, but then she stops because like I'm breathing heavily. She was like, "Wait a minute, she can't breathe." I was like, "That's just me hyperventilating."
You're like, "Wait."
And then so she gets it in me, and then all of a sudden I can smell blood in the air, and I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, we need to take some samples from you.
Right.
And then I was like, oh my God. And like, I could feel it being drawn, the blood being drawn from my body. And then so she's done. And then they were like, okay, you can come with me and follow me. So I'm like, oh, okay, like it's over. It's almost over. And then she leads me down the hall to this room. She opens up this door and I see a bed and there's these sliding glass doors over there. And I'm standing at the entrance of the door because I'm like, it's $1,000 if I walk into this room. So I'm standing there. I was like, why are we here? What are we doing here? Why do I need to be in here? And she was like, well, the nurse is, she was like, the doctor is ready to come see you right now. So you just need to have a seat. And I was like, okay, you're never going to believe this, but I'm feeling better. Okay, because this
is you during Sacramento. GJ, I feel better. I'm like, yeah, with the frog in your throat, okay.
I'm telling you, okay, because then I explained to her, okay, I don't have any medical science backing me, but because you pulled the blood from me, I feel like it deflated something in me. So I'm starting to feel better. And she was like, I'm sure you are, but you're just going to have a seat. The doctor, she's coming right now. I can hear her. And then I'm like, fine. And Molly's like pushing me to get into the room. And this is how bad I am. Okay, I sit on the very edge of the bed to not mess up the bed. So technically I didn't sit in this bed or lay in this bed. I just sat in the very edge. And then I'm kind of looking, I'm like, what are you doing now? And then the doctor comes in and she's listening to my sentence. And she goes, so you have anaphylactic shock. And I was like, what does that mean? Right. And she was like, well, you just need to basically start having the hives and one other thing. And she was like, not only did you just have the hives, you threw up, you can't feel your tongue, your throat's closing up, you can't feel your ears. And I was like, she just
you're like, I have all things.
No, I was like, I'm telling you, I'm feeling better. And she was like, you need an EpiPen now. And we need to put the saline in you to help push the EpiPen through you.
Right.
So I'm like, man. And she was like, you're going to be here for a couple of hours for observation. I was like, son of a gun. So then finally, I'm like, okay. And so I sit into the bed. And I can't really bend this arm. So like I'm sitting into the bed. I'm just laying there now, like all upset. And all of a sudden, the nurse comes back in and she has a bunch of stuff with her. And then they were like, okay, do you want the EpiPen in your thigh or your arm? And I was like, you could just put it in my arm. So then I'm looking away this time. And now Molly comes to this side and she's holding my arms down again. And I'm like, you cannot do the counting. If you do the counting, I'm going to flinch.
Right. You're like,
I was like,
anxious.
Yeah, I was like, you need, the trick is you just have to attack me with it. So like, I cannot know when it's going to happen. And then so she starts wiping my arm down with the alcohol wipes. I'm like, it's just alcohol wipes.
Right.
And then literally, so she puts the needle in and I could feel it and I could see Molly's eyes. Molly's eyes are like, that's a big needle.
Don't.
And I'm looking at Molly like.
You're like, why are you making that face?
So literally, I'm like, and then these nurses come running into my room because she didn't close the sliding door. And then she was like, oh, I thought I closed the sliding door. And then they were like, is everything okay? I was like, the husky you heard, it's just me. And then so she starts opening up these vials and I can smell it in the air. And every time she pushes it into me, I could feel it running across my body. Did you know liquid Benadryl can get you high?
No, I did not know that.
I didn't know Benadryl came in a liquid form.
Same.
And then I was like, is it normal that I feel high right now? And she was like, oh yeah. Like she was like, most people don't feel it. But she was like, yes, you could feel the symptoms is you can sometimes feel like as if you're high. And then I was like, I feel it running up and down my body. Like it was like critters running across my chest. And then she looks at me and she was like, do you normally take a lot of medication? I was like, besides birth control, no. And she said to me that I'm very sensitive to medicine. Wow. Yeah. And I was like, I have a really bad nose. I cannot smell anything. So if I can smell something, it's pretty bad. But for some reason, blood and any kind of medicine, when they open up the vials, I can smell it immediately in the air. So I never knew that, but I'm very sensitive to medicine. So when we left to the ER, I just slipped my shoes in. I didn't, the back of the heel, I didn't flip it up. So I'm laying there and my feet keep moving. Like they just keep moving. So finally I get so irritated. I'm like, Molly, Can you take my shoes off? This ghost keeps trying to put it on me. This guy kept trying to fit my shoes on for me because my shoes kept riding up, you know, because he kept trying to push it down, but then he was moving my foot, and I was like, literally, my feet just kept moving. I was like, so irritated. It was just so bad. And then I'm totally okay now, though. Sworn off alcohol now. I mean, I don't drink it often anymore anyways, but ever since I raised my shrine, I can no longer get buzzed or drunk. I took 7 shots in an hour and a half, and I was sober the whole night. So, and then, so here's the kicker. Okay, so earlier I mentioned this new go that came over me, right?
Right.
And I was like getting possessed. So fast forward the weekend after, we go to Texas, and the go comes back. And I was like, it's you guys! I was like, it's you guys. That's how come I can't drink alcohol now. And they turned to me and was like, this is the way of 技能幾係你知係講啦跟住咁樣先 I was like, oh my God, I was so mad. And then after they said that, I was like, I can't even say anything to them. I'll just go back to my journey.
Wait. So you picked up new guides, or they were just dormant?
No, these are different guides that I picked up, and they were literally not okay with me drinking alcohol for a long time, but I still kept doing it. And that's how come I couldn't get buzzed, because they were hoping I can't get buzzed, so I would just stop drinking. But I just still kept drinking. Like, I'm going to keep testing it, because I always say, if they don't like something, trust me, they will make it known to you. And they sent me a $1,600 bill for me to realize.
Wait. So shamans can pick up more Kuanings as they go through?
Yes.
And therefore, when you do pick up more Kuanings, and based off of their particular likeness, it would affect you.
Exactly. Yep. So, I didn't know people didn't know that. So
that's why I'm here.
So, my teacher, she wasn't meant to be my real teacher. However, my spirit guides wanted me to learn the traditions through her. And so I've always been thankful for that. However, my Kuaneng have always taught me that they will carry me the rest of the way. So this is what happens when you raise under a teacher that's not your true teacher, but that's kind of all you got, you know? So then what happens is your spirit guides must teach you to go and get your other Kuaneng for you. So my teacher never actually saw any of my other spirit guides. And then what ends up happening now, after your 3rd shrine, you're just kind of living Gucci. When you practice at home, periodically, your spirit guides will teach you to go and release other spirit guides for you, especially since it's been 10 years, and I haven't been doing it. So they went to go ahead and show me how to release more and more spirit guides. And there are spirit guides that do not allow you to drink alcohol as a shaman, because you tend to run the risk of being possessed if you're not sane.
So you're telling me these Kuanings that you recently picked up, they're yours to begin with, and they were just dormant until you came to release them? Or is it something that you just picked up along the way, like additional, that weren't yours to begin with?
You can never pick up spirit guides that aren't yours. Even if you try to go and capture some, like Pokemon, they will leave you. They will just leave you, and you will not have that gift. So only if they are truly yours, then you can go and get them.
Okay.
Yeah, but these are 自认自宗, and they were like, no way, ma'am. Such is life. But anyways, long tangents.
Yeah, no worries.
So it's just like, what I found that helped me a lot was not so much other people's stories, because I understood everybody had a journey, but it wasn't relatable to me.
Right.
So and I am such a believer in science, in logic. So it had to for me to
I'm in the same boat. Yep.
So okay, I have to ask you this. Have you ever done the shake test yet?
No.
Okay. Don't do it until you're about to raise, okay? Because if you do go and do a shake test and you do changa, you will develop anxiety from not doing it. So don't go a very long time, or else your Kuaneng are going to be very unhappy. You're going to face a lot of depression and anger. So don't do it until you're pretty much ready to commit soon. And then that's when you should go and start to do your shake tests.
Then let me ask you this. For Johnny, What should he do to prepare himself before he does his shake test? Should he be more connected with his guide, like his wife Hannah? Because the way Hannah talks, it sounds like she has a very good connection with them when they talk to her like that. That's why I was very surprised on how well she communicates with them. Now, for Johnny himself, what can he do to prepare himself before he does the shake test if he's fully committed to start his journey?
Yeah, definitely before doing your shake test, it's more about you should really know who you are. Like I've always been a person, let's let this car pass. I've always been a person, how far are you going, car? We can still hear it.
Yeah.
It's like McDonald's breakfast is almost closing.
We can still hear it.
Okay.
So like for me, I've always been a person with very clear boundaries. Like I know who I am. And I've had a lot of people from their experiences, they had to have talks to themselves. It's about understanding if this is truly the teacher you guys want, if this is truly the path I'm supposed to go on, I will shake. And knowing that if you do not shake, this is not your teacher, And so having that clear conversation with yourself, and a lot of people don't know what to expect. And when I first went into it, I remember giggling. And I was still a semi non-believer. I was like, you was not about to do this. Like, come on. Like, because I was so Americanized. And there were so many people who told me that it was so unorthodox that I became a shaman because I was like so not, in air quotations, Hmong. So it was one of those things where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like in that moment. And then I was like, I was almost going to bust out laughing, but then I was like, oh, but it might be, they might take it as being rude, that I'm not taking it seriously. Right. But for me, I was like, you're not really about to do this, are you? Like, and then when it happened, everybody feels it differently, but some people will start to kind of sway back and forth before it finally takes over. But as soon as they hit the gong, it was like this thing that came over and just covered my arms. And then I really went. And then I remember the whole time, I was just like, I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, like, what is my body doing? Like, what is it doing? Like, it was just I was trying to understand what was happening to my body. And that is actually what made me the true believer. The first shaman, he saw a lot of things about me that like other people wouldn't have known. And then, so that's why I really believed I was going to die if I didn't do it.
Let me ask this, right? Because then I asked earlier, what can Johnny or people in Johnny's position, what do they need to do? And it sounded like your answer was really get to know yourself.
Yes.
Right. And hearing your story before you did your shake test, what would you have given an advice to your younger self before she began her journey that would have helped you in the future?
Not to be afraid. That was my biggest thing, was just the fear of the unknown. Yeah, that. Oh my Lord, my phone's about to die. Okay. Yeah. For me, it was definitely not to be afraid, because I had a lot of fears that if I become possessed, if I go crazy, who's gonna help me out of this? And I completely went into it like with just winging it.
Right.
I'm the queen of winging it.
Jumping into the abyss.
And everything, they all lined up.
And how did this fear stop you?
For me, it was
knowing that you're the type of person who just goes in, but you're telling me now that if you could tell your younger self, don't be afraid. How did this stop you and hinder your journey?
For me, at the beginning, I went to the doctors and I racked up $7,000 in medical bills, testing myself to see if I had a tumor. That I would have could have lived without that. So really just that fear of, I was waiting to see what was the next sign of when am I going to die. And I was trying to see, could I wait and see if I'm going to die? And then bam, I'll run to become a shaman.
So the fear that you're speaking of is more about
not taking action. Because then as soon as I went and took action, bam, everything happened really fast. My shrine was up. So yeah, it was, yeah. So my fear was definitely the unknown, and I had nobody to talk to about it or to get clarity, like what's it actually like? You know, like what happens?
Because then back then it's very different. It's like you said, they're very hush hush. No
yeah,
one really
everything
talks
was very
about it.
hush hush. And when you talk to elders, even if it's like your friends' elders, they didn't know. They don't know the answer because they weren't shamans themselves, and they would say, yeah, that's literally their answer.
Yeah. That's literally what like our parents say too, right?
Yeah, and in hindsight, they're not wrong.
Right.
But there's a lot that goes.
You're right. You're not wrong, but you're not. Not everything's there.
It's not that accurate. That's how come you have so many shamans who struggle on their journey. It does depend on your faith and your trust in your neng, and that is your faith and trust in yourself. Because I trust myself so much that in hindsight I trust in my kwaneng, and so they know me and they push me when I would rather not do it. You know, so because there are a lot of moments even in my day to day, I do things that I'm not even registering. Why is my body doing this? But I'm doing it still. And then later on, I'll connect again. And I'll be like, oh, why did I do that? Because kind of like when I was going to throw up, I literally put my hair up. And I don't even know why I was doing it. I put my hair up. My friends were still talking to me, and I'm listening to them, and I'm engaged in their conversation, but I was putting my hair up, and I was leaving the room. And I don't know why I was leaving the room. I had no idea where I was going. I just remember my heart rate was really going. And then all of a sudden, I found myself in the bathroom looking at the toilet, and I'm like, why am I looking at the toilet? And then, blah, I came out. So a lot of times that I probably because I allow my spirit guides to take over so much, that they just do the motions for me, and I'm not even really there. I don't really know what I'm doing. Possession, perhaps? So, yeah, pretty much you just have to know yourself. But, you know, knowing that you ended up marrying Hannah. So at first you were kind of like, is this really for me? You're still trying to figure this out, right?
Right.
Then you guys got married knowing that this is probably going to be your future. What was that like?
Oh, well, I was like, well, at this point, you know, the moment we got married, I was like, yeah, this is going to be my life from now on. And, you know, I just had to accept it. I was like, well, there's no backing out now. I just have to roll with it. You know, I have to roll with the punches. No matter, you know, how hard the punches, you know, land. I'm like, well, you know, this is us. You know, this is our lifestyle. And I'm doing this for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, like, does your family know?
Yes,
about
they do.
You and Hannah?
Yeah. We actually had a talk about it. I say, maybe about a year or two ago about it. And my parents had actually, you know, sat us down. And they were like, oh, so, like, are you and Hannah gonna, you know, are you guys gonna go to church? Like, with, like, you know, with us, or are you gonna do your own thing? And I was like, we're gonna do our own thing. You know, and Hannah was the one that spoke up. She was like, you know, we're gonna do our own thing. And my mom was like, well, what do you mean by your own thing? And we're like, well, we're gonna, you know, be shaman. And she was like, are you sure? It's like, this is what you want to do. You know? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I married her, so of course, this is like, you know, this is it. And they're like, all right, you know, like, if it's like that, then that means you guys should probably go out and help out, you know, a lot of your relatives to go, you know, get your name out there so that whenever you need help, they can come and help you.
Oh,
you know?
I love that.
So I was like, okay, well, you know, I'll put that in, you know, in the back burners. But, you know, for particularly that, when my mom mentioned that, I was like, you know, I don't know, you know, what it will be like when we do start our journey. Like, would it be easier if people did come and help, or is it just okay for us just to kind of do it on our own too? You know what I'm saying?
Question: have you seen other people wanting, and you've been a part of that and helping them on the back end? That way, you know if it is important to get the support for people to come and help.
I mean, I've seen my dad's relatives do it, so I haven't really been a part of it, but I just attended, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
You know, and just see what it's like for them. What happens, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I could see why they would, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like, you know, I guess we're in the modern day and age of, like, shamanism, so I don't know how people roll, you know, because some people, you know, with Hannah's friend, like, you know, they roll different, where they're kind of like, well, we're just doing our own thing. We don't really need, like, other people's help. Gotcha. You know what I'm saying? And if they do need our help, like, we're always there.
So you helped Hannah's friend?
We didn't, like, go and help them, but, you know, and that was it, you know, so we never, like, helped them, but whenever they ordain for, like, other people, they're just like, yeah, we're just doing it on our own. You know, we don't, like, ask people to come help and all that kind of stuff, because, they both have their own shrines and stuff. So I was like, so that's how I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
you
Because, like with my students, I have both. I have the very modern, they're married to Mika people. But they still use animals or they use black magic. So it's really, like it just really depends on, do they live in a city where there is a butcher or a farm nearby? Do they have those resources? And then I have the super traditional students where it's every branch of the family that comes and the tianeng, and they're very traditional. Like then I have the Hmong families, even all Hmong, where they don't have as much support or they're not married. So I've seen it all around. I do agree that Neng doesn't have to be super difficult. Like a lot of times for the tianeng, it is a lot of times for the respect for the teacher, like the family. They don't want to lose face that they don't know how to properly give thanks to a shaman. And so it's just really, based off of conversations. You have the conversations. Like I always tell some students, like, we don't need a tianeng, like my requirement is only when I am going to oneng, they bay right there. And then when I get down and I'm done, then they bay again. And that's it. The table, that is strictly for the families to have a good relationship. And so, but then even if they hear me, they're going to have their grandpas or their uncles like, no, that's not proper. Even if they say no, they really mean yes. So you must do it. And then the envelopes and the plates confusing. Come. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I really mean it. But we do, I do allow their families to do that because that is their customs, that is their traditions. And it's beautiful to see so many people who come to help. But one of my students, we were cracking up. She got a 200-pound pig. And we were like, honey, this is bigger than you. I said, 50 to 60 pounds. What happened to that? She was like, it looks smaller in real life, but now that we're in the house, it's very large.
Yeah, I'm a worrywart, so I worry about and I think about a lot of things like, right, how would my journey be, and how's Hannah's journey going to be? Who's going to help us? Who's going to be our masters and all that kind of stuff. So I worry and I overthink about it a lot. So that's especially since this is new to me, and Hannah's a little bit more exposed to it. But since the gates are there, I'm just at the stage where like I'm starting to get dreams about certain things, and there's a meaning behind it. But I'm kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'll just let it roll out and see what happens, or I gotta walk with caution. And because of that, I'm like, man, like how is it gonna be difficult?
And one thing that I do appreciate about you guys having that conversation with your parents, knowing you were sticking with your guns and this may not be the route for them. I love that they wanted to know, though. And they were trying to prepare you for the realities of gaining kaya. It's so much work. I cannot stress enough how much work is involved. Like, I would say the hardest part is the raising. That is the hardest part. After that, you can oneng in silence for years, but the hardest part is the raising part, because traditionally a shaman raising, it's a celebration. You are now bringing another healer into the community. That is, you want to make sure that and this is usually why a lot of families, they want to go with a teacher that they know in the clan because they trust them. Right. That if something happens to you, they're not just going to cut you off and leave you like, you went crazy. That's not my problem. I'm leaving you as a student, right? They want a teacher who is going to also care for their children, because this is entrusting a teacher to really lead their children to become a shaman. So on one hand, I understand the traditions and why people try to protect one another a lot when it comes to shamanism. And then I also get that in modern days and times, families are not as close anymore. They have differing values now when it comes to religious beliefs, So the best thing you can do for yourself is to be very educated on the teacher you choose, on whether you're using animals or not, because it will change your lifestyle. it will also impact the type of neng that you will have and what type of ceremonies you can perform based off of that. So if you want to just be a psychic and you don't want to fight, go and fix graves, and you don't want to do curses and cursed families, you don't have to go that route, right? You can choose differently. However, it is going to impact your journey, but here's the kicker too. There are some people who don't get to choose. Okay. You do not get to choose. Okay. Well, like I did not get to choose to be a demon slayer or not. You genuinely, and this is what I mean by depending on which teacher you go with, the lineages are so different. Like my Kwaneng have always told me that my teacher is not my real teacher, but they will carry me the rest of the way. However, I could have gone with a very different teacher and became a very different shaman, so it's all perspective on who you end up going with as well. But then you run into a lot of shamans who find teachers and they're stuck. They can't finish all their lines, all their however many shrines they have. They don't know what they're doing to fix a client. They don't know how to go and do certain things. So there is just so much out there and nothing is cookie cutter. And that's where a lot of people end up struggling, So this is why I always tell people the best thing you could do is be educated, and it's not a guarantee. Nothing is a guarantee. So, and that's why people usually surround themselves with people, because they can also look out for you. They can give you pointers and tips. And what should we do now that you're stuck? Now that, we did go down this route and it's just not working out. We need to go with a different teacher, a completely different lineage than we had originally planned. Now you do have to use animals. Your Kwaneng won't accept not using animals, or vice versa. Maybe your Kwaneng are like, no, we is not using animals. But your teacher uses animals, so you don't have a choice, So it is just becoming very educated to protect yourself. Like I never recommend going to just one shaman. You need to go to a couple of other shamans, because when you do that, it gives you more knowledge and it protects you.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, but what I'm hearing from you though is that you are very sensible and you have very valid concerns. Like especially go Zia, and then let's say your wife does Waneng. Now you have to be her husha. You have to help support her the same way she would support you when you raise. Just knowing what that entails.
Right.
Like GJ is one of my hushas that I have. I have about 4 of them that I cycle through, whoever is available. And during our California trip, you really realized how important it was to be a husha and the role that a husha plays.
Yeah, because I would say before then, I've done a couple of ceremonies for you, and I just sat there and I just wait until you tell me in English what I need to do. And then I did raise my concern with you, and I said, hey, like the number one thing like I freak out is about like switching out the shana when it's like going low, and I'm afraid that every time I'm about to go and change it, you then tell me what I need to do next, right? Whether it's like burning the majeng or preparing the zhening or use the juning and everything, like I freak out. And so I noticed that every time I do freak out about the incense sticks, then it comes true, because I am freaking about it and I am manifesting it. So then I asked you, how do I know ahead of time, right? Because I am someone who has a lot of anxiety. So how do I calm this anxiety, right? So in order for me to better prepare myself, I need to be better educated. Then you told me, DJ, when I hungo, I tell you what I'm about to do. And I'm like, really? So then I'm like, okay, because before I never listened to it. I just sit there and I wait until she tells me what to do. Then I get up and go and do it. Right. So then during the California trip, before, I helped Tassie raise one of her students, and I was her husha there. And then so I sat there. She already told me, like, I say it in my hungo. So I sit there actively listening to her, and I'm listening. I'm like, okay, what is she saying? But it's also interesting because when she's doing her hungo, I'm understanding when she's speaking Hmong. I'm understanding the context of what she's talking about. That way, when she does ask me to ask the client that she's doing that one name for, I now know what she's talking about because I was already listening to it. Having sitting there and listening to her hungo, I was able to pick up when she says, okay, majeng. I'm like, oh, it's almost time, so I better prepare it. And I like to have everything in a particular area, because then if everything's within sight here and I'm I'm preparing ahead of time, I'm not gonna freak out. Like I need 9 incense sticks, I count those ahead and I pull them out because I don't want to be counting them the time and I'm like, holy shoot, because it's the reason why I have anxiety is lack of preparation. You have to prepare. You have to be disciplined on yourself, and so that way you can better make sure everything is executed perfectly,
so everything can fall
close
into
to
order.
perfect.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. Yeah, when I have anxiety, when I'm kind of like, oh damn, do I have everything in order?
Yeah,
you know, to make sure that everything falls in that order.
Yes. And then only then during the Sacramento trip and where we did ceremonies back to back to back, that's when I got a better hang of it and I was getting better at picking up what Tassie was talking about. The funny thing is I can never hear the singing. Whenever you say singing, I never catch it.
And we will even hoo it 3 times.
Yeah, I never catch it. Yeah. For some reason, I don't catch it, but everything else I can catch. I hear the mahjong. I hear when
the animal when it's
when it's time to grab the animal, because then once I hear she's talking about the pig or the goat, then I look at the men in the family. I'm like, it's almost ready. Like, be on standby when I need you guys to grab it. Okay. And so it's been very helpful to actively listen to what she's talking about, because then I can then further explain it to the clients when Tassie's asking me a question, because she's saying, hey, you know, is the client going to do this and this and this? And so I look at them and I said, hey, you know, this is what she's talking about. But before asking it, this is what was going on. So do you know, like answer the question, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of
GJ's really good. She's a really good husha, honestly. Like just understanding my needs and anticipating it.
Yes. And
it
because
makes
of that,
so much easier.
Yeah, it made my life easier because I'm very particular in how I have to do it. And so that's when I come to realize, oh, being a husha is important. Because before I was like, I just sit here and wait to test what to do.
I'm just chilling here until
During ceremonies, they are so important. When a shaman is just practicing at home and it's not for an actual client, those sessions running around 40 minutes to an hour, it's a lot simpler. The husha doesn't have to run around and do a bunch of stuff during that time.
Right.
So it's a lot easier when it's just like you and your wife and you're just nondoa for her at home and just observing and making sure you watch her so she doesn't trip or fall and stuff like that. Very easy. But that is all meant for you to connect with her style. And so a lot of people do pull out their phone watching videos and trying to pay attention at the same time. I'm guilty of this. Okay, like I would say I would make a terrible husha. No one's ever asked me this, but I don't know what it is in my life. I need people around me to help me live. I don't know what it is. My sisters are very well aware of this. I have a lot of shortcomings when it comes to human things, but but they are so good at it, so just anticipating your needs and, oh, Tassie can't carry heavy things. I know Tassie likes things like this. So just being very aware of like your wife and what does she need? How does she tend to oneng? How long does she tend to go? How do her kwaneng tend to talk to her? Like, do they yell at her or do they not like certain things? Like, all of that, as you build that connection, you will feel a lot more comfortable when you don't. And you go and help heal other families you don't know, and how she likes to perform and how she does things, So, I do know that my spirit guides are very forgiving, where they allow me to speak out in English, to yell and give direction and talk to people and still stay in my trance, right? So that helps so much, especially because at the beginning, and I wasn't speaking Hmong. So it was very difficult for any husha to understand me. But it was really weird because my teacher's husband, he always understood me. Even though he can't speak Chinese, he understood what my kwaneng were doing. But, he had kwaneng too, though. So he was very good at listening to someone's jangawa, just sitting there, and he would just listen the whole time. And he knew everywhere I was going in my journey, even when Kuhailu Shua. And he, to this day, for the record, he says, I can speak Hmong. And he's an OG, okay? He's an OG. Because then when people say, oh, sorry, Tassie can't speak Hmong, he will literally turn and say, no, she can speak Hmong. Because he knows I can speak Hmong. I just tend to put words in different ways. And I have an accent when I speak Hmong. So it sounds like I'm not speaking Hmong. Pocha, okay? Pocha is... This is a hill I'll stand on. Pocha, olicha. Like,
Yeah. There's a twang to it. Yeah, I can hear it. There's that twang.
Okay, guys, really quick. I have these books. Okay, like I have a beautiful client who brought me a couple of books, and it basically has it in Hmong and English. Okay, and I've been sitting here between our breaks trying to read it, and could either of you understand me when I was reading it?
It's like a hit or miss. I'm like, it's there, but I'm like, but what is she really trying to say?
Yeah, you have a very Chinese way of saying
Yeah. There's a twang to your Hmong. So I'm like, well, she's speaking Hmong. I can hear it, but I just don't know what exactly she's saying.
It kind of sounds like it.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it, but it's not all there.
My family and I, we were karaokeing the other night, and we were singing in Hmong songs, and she happened to be sitting next to me, so she claims I was ruining all the words for her, because then I'll be like trying to say the word really fast, because like with Hmong words, I can read it, but usually I have to rely on the other surrounding words for me to clearly understand what that one weird word is. But yeah, like I would say I could speak Hmong.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, thank you.
But then again, I'm not good at speaking Hmong either.
Oh, you're pretty good, because she used to work at what you formerly known as Highway. So she had a lot of Hmong clients.
I see.
And she became really
That's
good.
when I really learned how to speak it, and it was so
She
funny.
can charm any Hmong parent, you guys.
Oh, it's so easy. You just butter them up, and they love that. Eat it up, and I'm just like, I'm like just talking with them. Tapay the listener.
She can butter up any Hmong OG, and she's so good at talking to them. But yeah, so I would say you're pretty good at speaking Hmong. I would think you're better than I am.
Yeah, because then I had to conduct business in Hmong, so
Yeah.
I picked up a
That's tough.
lot of business terminology, or at least in the banking. So then I've gotten a lot better.
So do you and Hannah speak Hmong?
Hannah, not so much. But she's getting better. She's getting better. And I do go through like a lot of like we do go through a lot of like flashcards and stuff together, just because her Hmong isn't that great. Hmong is her second language. Hmong is my first language.
Wow.
And then I learned to speak English, but now I'm predominantly just speak English because work and all that kind of stuff. But I can still pronounce some words, but whenever I do need help, I just go to my mom and like, hey mom, so like, what does this word mean? And she's like, oh, this means that and that. No.
Yeah, because I remember Hannah saying that education was very important, her growing up and speaking English to be successful.
Right.
Yeah, and like in our family, when we were younger, my mom was in college and she translated for the CIA. So a lot of times we spoke English in our house. Like we always spoke in English to our mom. We never spoke to her in Hmong. And then now that she's older, it's really interesting that sometimes you guys speak in English to mom too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mom
so
speaks Hmong, and then I just say
we
it back
always
in English.
respond in English. Yeah. So
I mean, she still speaks. I mean, is she fluent in English too, right?
Yeah.
yes, she is. Because she worked jobs too with
Right.
English speaking, and she owned her own businesses. So yeah, so we always spoke English. And then it wasn't until she got married and had some stepfathers who decided that we needed to speak Hmong. Then our stepfathers, they were big on we needed to speak Hmong. And we were like, but we were not raised to speak Hmong.
Right.
So, and we weren't close to our relatives on either side. So it was very odd to us that somebody was telling us that we had to learn Hmong.
Right.
And, but we were raised in the suburbs and our friends were always non-Hmong speaking. So we never had a chance to use it. So I would say I use it now only with my sisters because, where I work and everything is there's not Hmong speakers there either.
Right,
we don't use Hmong.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my boyfriend's not Hmong, so I really don't talk to anybody other than my clients and then, of course, my sisters. But I would say when I started to Oneng, what really helped me speak a lot of Hmong was my teacher. My teacher could not speak English and she didn't understand English.
Oh, I see.
So through her, she was very, very patient with me. I could understand it being spoken to me, but I'll put the words in the wrong place, periodically. But she always understood me and what I was trying to say to her. Or else when I would get really frustrated, I would just rely on her children. And her children would just translate what I'm trying to say.
I see.
Yeah, but I mean, especially because you can speak Hmong. But the thing is nowadays when shamans Oneng, a lot of times they don't even speak Hmong.
Yeah,
like Honeng, they'll have a different language.
Yeah. Like when we went to Hannah's friend, like, New Hailu Shuo, And I was just like, when she's like Nupicheng, I was like, oh man, like I cannot understand a single word, like what she's saying, but I can just get a gist of what she's saying, So I'm just like, man, like how difficult that must be if to like hear her speak Chinese when she's chanting, and then hear Hannah whenever like we speak Hmong. She's probably just as lost as I am when I'm when I'm listening to her friend chant. I'm like, man, the Hmong language is hard, man, especially if you're not.
This car.
The bass.
But I have clients or I have students who don't normally speak Hmong a lot. And when they hungo, it's perfect Hmong,
Really?
And then my family can tell when it's my Kwaneng talking because I speak perfect Hmong. And they only speak it to yell at them. But
it's happened many times with me. Your Chinese one, I don't know, she don't like me, but she'll look and she'll say it in Chinese. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, just keep backing your fingers.
You can understand the feeling because there are many times where they will just yell and they're yelling in Chinese directly at her, and then I'll stop and then they'll say it in Hmong. But I would definitely say Chinese is my Kwaneng's first language.
I see.
And then it would be English and then it'd be Hmong.
Oh wow.
So Hmong is very, very difficult for me, and my Kwaneng is very different. It doesn't roll off naturally. Right. And so when I say a lot of words in Hmong, it has a Chinese accent.
It has a twang to it. So I'm like, oh wow, okay.
So it's definitely, I'm very well aware Hmong is not my first language. But I feel like for people, I wouldn't be afraid if you don't speak a lick of Hmong, right? I wouldn't be too concerned. Yeah. But I will say this. Certain Hmong words have a deep meaning. So as long as you, kind of like when Kohalu Shoma, I understand that deep meaning, but it's because I could feel that deep meaning of that word, But that is what you have to develop really quick then. If you can't speak it, you can't understand that word, that Neng Lua, you have to develop that feeling really quick.
I see.
Yeah, and then you're fine as long as your Husho can understand you. But I will say this: a lot of OGs, they prefer you to speak Hmong because then the elders can't understand you. Because when you Oneng, elders just pull up a chair and they sit there and they will watch you the whole time because they want to hear your journey and where you're going. Did they do this correctly? Did they go at Mulanzua? Did they go at Mulanli? Like they are looking for keywords, because that's how they can basically judge a shaman. And that's why a lot of the OGs do this, where they will sit there and watch the whole time. They're really listening to that shaman. Yeah.
Oh, didn't even know that. Interesting.
Definitely, I feel like it's always a learning. As long as you're always willing to learn and be open, you're going to be fine.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Johnny, for coming on. I feel like we went on so many tangents.
Yes. Sorry, folks. Sorry.
But no, it was good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes.
Until next time, you guys.